While the politicians here in Washington and the pundits across the country are debating the state of the economy and whether or not we need a second stimulus, Texas Congressman Ron Paul is taking a contrarian view, as he often does, about what the government should and shouldn't be doing for Americans. If you had won the presidency, and obviously you ran for the presidency, what would you be doing differently than President Obama has done, specifically in the way he's handled the economic crisis?
I would have done a lot less.
A lot less.
I would have allowed the bankruptcies to occur. We allow laymen to go bankrupt, so it helps Goldman Sachs.
Right.
And then we bail out AIG, that bails out Goldman Sachs. The people that were overextended should be bailed out. Debt should be liquidated. The sooner the debt is liquidated, better. The faster the home prices come down. To really understand this, you need to understand 1921. The recession, depression that came after World War I was 1 year long because we didn't believe in all this intervention. Hoover messed things up, and Roosevelt compounded it because they believed the government had to prop up prices, especially price of labor. It didn't work.
So what role is there, what would you do as if you had been president again? What role is there for the federal government to help the estimated 16 million uninsured Americans and the millions of American families who are at risk of losing their homes right now?
Well, first you have to stop the inflation, then you have to deregulate, then you give tax credits to the people who will take care of themselves or to the doctors who will provide the care. And in a transition, and I talked about this in the campaign, in a transition, because we have so many people so dependent on government, say the elderly.
Right.
You know, my ideal society isn't going to arrive in a week or two or in a 4-year presidency. Right. So my argument is that you can do that. You can take care of people, but never with a deficit, never by expanding the spending. It would be by cutting spending, and I would cut money overseas. I'd cut hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of this maintaining our empire around the world. Bring that money home, take care of the people who are dependent, and then work for the day where we can trust freedom once again and understand how free markets actually operate.
Right, I mean, you think or in the past, you've lobbied that the U.S. should be out of the UN entirely and we should disengage. So the idea, people look at that and say, you want us to disengage from the world. Isn't the U.S. a force of good in the world?
I think it's the opposite. I want to really be engaged. I want to engage. These people who talk about free trade and engaging around the world, they've given us sanctions against Cuba for 40 years.
That's true.
So I'm the one that wants to trade and travel and deal with Cuba. And same way with Iran. I want to be engaged.
Right.
I would say move the Navy away from there, talk to them and say, look, let's start off with a soccer game or something.
Right.
You know, let's break the ice. Let's talk to people. Let's not threaten. What we have in foreign policy is we have two policies. One, we threaten them. And if they do our bidding, we give them a lot of money. If they don't, we bomb them.
Right.
And I say, just talk to them and don't threaten them. And this whole idea that North Korea is a threat to the United States or the Iranians are going to drop a bomb is sort of like the argument that we had to go into Iraq because Saddam Hussein was going to bomb Washington, D.C. I mean, it's nothing more than war propaganda to build up the military-industrial complex.
Right. So turning back to the economy, what is your sense of the state of the U.S. economy right now? How optimistic or pessimistic are you?
I'm very pessimistic. I think we might be through a third of it, and nobody knows how long it'll last. The more we do to interfere with the corrections are good.
Right.
You want to correct the problems, but they won't allow the correction. The more we do, the longer it lasts. The Depression actually ended after World War II. The war did not end the Depression.
Right.
I mean, I remember the war, and we lived in very depressed conditions. Wage and price controls, and people didn't have automobiles, so it was very depressed. It took that long to liquidate all the debt and bad investment. Finally, then the consumer, people came back and got jobs and they weren't in debt, and we went back to work again. The one good thing that's happening right now is people are starting to save money. But the government's frantic. You don't want to save money?
Right.
We depend
want
on
you to spend. Yes, you
we
need
want
to
you
spend.
to borrow more money and buy stuff. Well, no, they don't need to buy stuff. They need to save money and pay down debt, and then we'll go back to work. And the faster that happens, the better it is for us.
Right. So obviously hindsight's 20/20, but who do you blame, if anybody, for the housing bubble and the boom and bust we just went through? Is it more the Fed? Is it Wall Street? Is it American homeowners who bought more house than they could afford? Or your Democratic colleague like Barney Frank, who a lot of people say it was people like him who pushed low-income housing on people who couldn't afford it?
One person.
One person?
Keynes. Keynes did it because he came into vogue in the 20s and the 30s, and people believed it, and they've been living by this. And Nixon put the rubber stamp on for all Republicans. We're all Keynesians now. We all have been. We believe in deficit financing, printing press money,
right.
and that created the bubble. So it's an intellectual fight. Keynes has lost this, and people are starting to recognize this system doesn't work. So now the underground thought process right now, the thinking goes now on the internet and elsewhere, is Austrian economics. They have the answers
right.
to our problems.
Right, but it seems like Keynes is making a comeback, at least here in Washington, D.C. I mean, is there anybody more recently you think is...
That's the last hurrah. It's
not
not working. That's like saying, well, we've had these 2 stimulus packages, that's all Keynes. We need one more.
Right.
The people are laughing at that.
What do you say? What is your sense of the political appetite right now for another stimulus package? Because there's been some chatter. Do you think we're going to see the Democrats try it?
Yeah, they will, and it might get passed, and they'll probably wait in next month when the economy has a few more bad statistics and
right.
unemployment's 11%. We'll frantically pass more money and continue to do the things that created the problem in the first place.